Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Center Court. I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. I have two amazing guests, alums of two of the greatest schools in the world. Both happen to be schools in Europe, London Business School and IESE Business School in Barcelona, Spain. Let me first introduce Michelle Wiles, who is a graduate of the LBS MBA program. She graduated in 2019, immediately joined McKinsey, but her love is marketing, and she now owns her own marketing firm in New York City. It's called Embedded. Michelle, welcome. And then we have, yes, and then we have Gonzalez Ortez, who is in private equity and investment banking. He graduated from IESE in 2018. And he's based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So welcome, Gonzalo.
Hi, John. Hi, everyone.
So why don't we begin by just telling us a little bit about your journey, your professional journey and your career, and how an MBA actually fit into it. Let's start with Michelle.
Sure. So my background, my whole career has been in pretty much marketing and advertising. I joined Procter & Gamble directly out of college, and then I moved over and worked on the creative advertising side, which was so much fun. You're creating kind of all the big campaigns you see on TV. But I felt like in advertising, you're very much doing the icing on the cake, and a brand will come to you and say, oh, McKinsey this or BCG recommended that. And I was like, I don't get why these guys are being paid so much more than me to not actually do anything. And I was confused about kind of the full business plan, just because we were so focused on the creative. It turns out they do a lot. But I felt like, we would just want positioned kind of strategically as high as I wanted to be. And so I went to business school. I specifically looked at schools that were much more finance focused so that I could kind of round out my other skills since most of my background's in marketing. As John said, I went to McKinsey afterwards, but I was always super focused on entrepreneurship and this idea of brand building for not just the creative part, but really designing an entire brand. So at LBS, I launched a brand with some other students. Currently employs about 40 people in London. And then I've also just been running marketing as freelancer and now agency owner in London and New York.
So the MBA fit into your plan for your professional life in what way?
Gosh, I think it just helped me broaden my knowledge base, and it's funny because I did business undergrad as well. And so I thought that I knew a lot, but I think being able to go to work for 5 years and focus on one area and then zoom back out and learn from especially how varied experiences you find at LBS, not just, industry-wise, but around the world, and really learning how to start a business. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it's kind of scary. But then when you're in business school, you kind of have these 2 years where on your resume, it's covered. So you kind of have the time to explore, do whatever you want. At LBS, I did 2 internships and started a company. And I think most business schools kind of allow you that time to explore.
Yeah, that's really true. Gonzalo, how about for you? How did you end up in PE and investment banking, and what role did your MBA play?
So first, I started my career as a consultant in Ernst & Young, here based in Buenos Aires, doing strategic consulting. Afterwards, I spent almost 6 years doing M&A in a boutique, a regional M&A in South America. And then I decided that the next move for me was to do an MBA. The question was where, and I wanted to have a really international experience. I wanted to grow in terms of my academic tools, more on the, I would say, less technical stuff, more strategic leadership kind of courses that I took. So then I decided to do my MBA at IESE, did my internship at Citibank in London, doing investment banking, covering real estate for Europe, which was an amazing experience for me. That's why I decided to take the full-time job offer afterwards. I stayed two years in London, working for the investment banking real estate team. Afterwards, I worked for PIF, which is the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia, in the international investments team, covering real estate and infrastructure as well. So we were looking for investments all around the globe, which was amazing. Not only direct investments, but also in funds. Then for personal reasons, I decided to come back to Buenos Aires, and I'm leading the alternative investments and investment banking division within a financial company here in Buenos Aires, which is an interesting place to be right now. But still, we're doing lots of things. And well, going back to your same question you asked to Michelle in terms of how the MBA helped me. Well, actually, it lifted up my professional level, I would say, my career. I started to play in the big leagues before I was on a regional firm in South America, and I had the chance to work with the big bankers, and for me, it was an incredible experience.
And it gave you a real international exposure, not only among your classmates, but then you immediately go to London. Then I'm assuming you go to Saudi Arabia, and all right, and then you go back.
Actually, I work remotely from here because at that point in time it was the pandemic, so I didn't have the chance to go there. Actually, that's why the reason I left PIF, because I couldn't move. There were no flights. It was a messy time, but nevertheless was an amazing experience for me. As you said, I had the chance to meet many cultures, many people, including City, the floor. In my team, we were 14 people in the investment banking team from 11 different nationalities. So imagine the cultural, it wasn't a clash, but the cultural differences that we had, and it was an incredible experience. The same as IESE, right? Because at IESE, the class is completely international, and in a way, it prepared me for my role at City and PIF later.
Absolutely. And Michelle, when you look back on your MBA experience, was there a surprise? In other words, I don't know what kind of, people often enter an experience, be it higher education or something else, with certain expectations, maybe even myths that they believe. And I wondered what surprised you most about the MBA experience. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, classic. But that's a great question. Gosh, I think what surprised me the most, especially with LBS, was just how easy it was to get to know everyone, and like how many friends I have today. Because LBS, I'm sure it's similar with Gonzalo, like, you're choosing international programs. It's very different, say, from undergrad. I went to undergrad in the Midwest in the US, and I was looking at mostly US programs. And then I kind of applied to LBS while visiting some friends. And I was nervous because international program, as Gonzalo was saying, everybody in all your classes, they're not just from, the UK or Spain. They're from pretty much every country in the world. And it's funny, like this year, I've been to a wedding in Spain. I'm going to a wedding this month in India. I have another wedding in South Africa in December. And it's wild because everybody in my class is from a different place. But despite that, and despite how you might have grown up and worked differently, everyone gets along so well. They're super open. I made so many friends and, professional network, but people kind of who are there for you, and you all go through this program together. And I think by fact of going to one of these international programs, even though people's backgrounds might be different, you're kind of self-selecting to this group of people that's all curious, open, generous, interested in others. And I feel like, that was the biggest surprise, because you go into these international schools and you're like, okay, what's it going to be like? Am I going to be able to make friends with all these people? And it's actually, now I'd almost preference those programs to others, because you get this incredible experience and you meet other people that have a really similar mindset.
Right. And I should point out that you went to Washington University in St. Louis for your undergraduate degree. And I'm assuming, are you from the Midwest or not?
No, I'm from the East Coast.
Okay. You have a New York vibe about you. So I would have thought that. But so it was quite adventurous for you to say, you know what, I want an MBA and I don't want it from a US school. I want it from London Business School, really. What does it say about maybe your interest in things global that you went to LBS?
I mean, it's definitely helped with jobs. A lot of working in marketing, so much of what you're trying to do is get new customers. And if you kind of, speak to not just, I ran some ads in another country, but no, I lived there. I learned about other people. I learned how to go to market in a country that I've never lived in. I think that's a really cool experience. After McKinsey, I ran marketing for a men's fashion brand out of Copenhagen for a year. And I'd never been to Denmark before I started the interview process. So that was kind of a crazy experience. But I think, again, going through the LBS experience, I'm sure it's similar for Gonzalo at IESE, you just learn how to work with people that are different from you, how to not have assumptions,
Yes.
how to start with questions. And I just think that's an unmissable experience if you're considering an MBA.
Yeah. Gonzalo, what led you actually to go to IESE in Barcelona? Was it you wanted a truly international experience? Did you want a case study school, which of course you got a case study education with your MBA, given that the school was actually helped into existence by Harvard Business School years ago. What was it about the school that made you so attracted to it?
Look, of course, at first I was a little bit afraid because it's in Spain. I'm from Argentina. It's my natural language. But once you arrive there, you realize you're in a completely international place because nobody speaks Spanish. Everyone is speaking English. Of course, you have the American people that want to speak Spanish and they try to chat with you. But you have that truly global class where you sit. I don't know, just to give you an idea, I have a very good Chinese friend. It was his first time in Europe. He was a doctor. Then I had a very close German friend, another one from Australia, so another guy from India. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that kind of international exposure to get out of my Spanish comfort zone.
Yes.
And why I chose IESE, I started speaking with people. Everyone was telling me about the people. There's a lot of ethical. Everyone tries to follow certain ethical rules. The school promotes this very much. Also, as you said, the academical side. It's very important for me. I wanted to study. I wanted to improve. I wanted to have new tools for me to perform better as a professional. IESE is a school that is quite heavy in terms of academics. The course load is not light, as you may say, but also that's something for me. It was great because I had the chance to improve myself. I had the chance to engage more with my teammates. We met every day, every morning, prepare all the cases. Studied quite hard, but also it was what I was looking for. And of course, Barcelona is great. I don't need to tell you
Fantastic.
that.
Love
Sunny city.
Barcelona.
But still, at first, as I said at the beginning, I was a little bit afraid because it's Spain and from Argentina. But actually, Barcelona is a very cosmopolitan city as well. So
Yes.
it was great in that sense. And well. In my career, it helped me a lot.
And was there a surprise for you when you joined the program?
I was a little bit surprised at first because when you arrive, in a way, you need to know quite at the beginning, where do you want to end, right? You need to have a plan. So at first I thought when I entered the MBA was, okay, I'm going to see if I want to do consulting, I want to do finance. But you need to put your ideas in line just to see where you wanna end up because you need to prepare yourself for the job you want to apply. And well, that was a little bit shocking at first because I was wondering what I wanted to do. But then when I realized I wanted to follow finance and the school helped me a lot in that. And it was the way to go, right? So yeah, that was shocking. And of course, again, the whole class was in English. I had to go out of my comfort zone, and the first weeks were a little bit hard. But then when you're okay with and you're confident about your speaking skills, whenever you're international and English is not your native language. it is great. It is great because afterwards well, I can present here on this panel. Maybe before the MBA, my confidence level was not high in that sense.
Yes, makes sense. We're already getting some questions, and I'm going to turn to them fairly soon. But Michelle, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the learning experience at London Business School. What was it like?
Sure. So I feel like at LBS, what's really cool, so your first term, that's kind of like the first kind of fall semester when you get into school is, that's probably like the most serious classes. That's when you take all the like, finance 101, marketing 101, all that. You're sitting with the same cohort. You sit in the same place every day, and I feel like your whole group kind of goes through it together. Those classes they're the hardest, but it's business school, they're not that hard. And most of it is pass fail. I came from like, very competitive, used to being very kind of grades oriented. And it was hard to let go of that. But then after you do your kind of classic coursework, then you have kind of free reign to study whatever you want. And at LBS, the coursework is extremely flexible. Like you can do like a block class where you take, the whole course in a single week. A lot of people do that for a lot of classes because then you can have a really light schedule, say the rest of the semester, and then travel a lot or get a part-time job or start your own company. And these are all things that I did. And some of the really cool classes that we got to take, I mean, especially in London, like they can also just bring in really cool professors. We took this amazing luxury strategy class where you learn really, how does LVMH become the most valuable company in Europe, despite, everyone talking about tech. But then they bring in these amazing speakers from these companies. We got to do a case competition with Ferrari. We do a lot of kind of IRL learning kind of with the communities in London. And that's a lot of fun. But then for me, coming from a marketing background, I really wanted to learn a lot more of the harder skills. I wanted to know how to model a business, and you can pretty much take whatever course you want. The last thing I'll say is, and I'm curious, Gonzalo's experience on this as well. The most valuable classes for me were definitely the interpersonal ones, or like, organizational behavior. You take these courses where you do a lot of in-classroom experiences, particularly with the other students, where you learn about yourself, your strengths. We did this one really funny exercise. We're in this class and you don't know most of the students, and you have this piece of paper and you go around to a new group of people and you talk, and then you pass around your sheet and they write down their first impression of you. And it might be positive, it might be negative. And then you cover it up so you don't know who wrote it. At the end, you have this list of kind of how you come off at first. And it won't all be positive, and it's kind of scary to get it, but it's cool because I'm like, when would I otherwise get this feedback? And I think those experiences just really help you hone your leadership style, how you're going to work in a team, where your strengths are, what you need to improve. And that's just, I don't think it's unique to LBS, but definitely something that is a cool part of the MBA experience.
So Michelle, what did your early classmates say about you?
Gosh, I think they said, I think I got funny, curious. And then I think one of the negative ones I got was aloof. And I was like, all right, I need to be more focused in conversation. I feel like my brain is always going off in another direction. And I remember that starkly. I had gotten that twice and I felt really embarrassed. And so I was like, okay, I need to work on this, pay more attention, or at least not convey that, because I feel like I am always paying attention, but then my brain will kind of go off without me. But yeah, I was not planning to share that. But
it's a great introspective exercise, because you are getting feedback that you wouldn't ordinarily get anywhere else. And you're getting it really honest, right? It's the kind of honest feedback you get that could be very valuable to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in a safe environment, right? Because you get honest feedback in a safe environment, and
yes.
that it really helps you. And you know your skills, your weaknesses, and afterwards, probably you had a team that helped you with that, Michelle, and they help you how to improve and things to make yourself a better professional person.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like at work where you get bad feedback and you're like, oh no, I'm going to lose my job. It's just, you're right. It's so safe.
Now, Gonzalo, can you describe your learning experience?
Yes, my learning experience was, as I said before, it was great. At first, it was a little bit tough. We met every day with our team, shared the ideas of the content that we read on the different cases. That helps us to work as a team from very different backgrounds, very different cultures, and that was part of the learning experience, which was great. Afterwards, the the case study method as well. You need to participate in class. So the first weeks were tough to raise your hand and say something intelligent in front of 70 other people. So, but again, first we started with the basic courses, finance 101, marketing, etc. But as Michelle said, I really enjoyed the interpersonal courses. Leadership was great. One thing that was very interesting for me, it was all the negotiation techniques. We had this course with a very good professor, which taught us how to speak with people, engaged, not be too aggressive. Of course, everyone has its own personality and could be good or bad, but help you how to reach to a good point in each negotiation. And the courses that I enjoyed the most, I would say, were interpersonal, but also there was one specific that was managing corporate growth, which you analyze each company. We discussed two specific cases that remind me. Spotify was one, because it's a company that was growing really fast, and afterwards there's a very interesting TV series that help you to even understand more. But we analyzed all the business model from Spotify, and if it would succeed at some point, it would turn profitable or not. And well, that was incredibly interesting. Also, we saw a case on Disney and all how the company grew and all the culture from the company, how from the characters they can build an entire empire on different business units, and that was great. But again, I like finance. I'm a finance guy. I enjoy those courses as well. Private equity, venture capital, I don't know, fintech, many things and topics that you can cover. Again, always with the case method. I think it's really good for learning, because you need to go deep in each topic and understand all the background on different situations. And I think it's a very good way to learn and go deep in specific topics.
Now, oftentimes, business school education is very different than what many other students have experienced in their undergraduate years, where in many cultures you're spoken to, it's a lecture, you sit back, and you don't talk a whole lot. But in the business school, professors are trying to tap into the work experience and knowledge that you bring and have you engage in a rich and dynamic discussion. And I wondered how helpful, and this is a question from a member of our audience, Gonzalo, as an international student going to a new country, even one that's maybe spoke part of your language, what that transition was like for you. What were the challenges, and how helpful was the school in helping you with the transition?
No, look, the transition, of course, every time you move into a different country, you need to adapt. You need to, I don't know. I went a couple of weeks before, find a place. Again, I speak Spanish. Barcelona, they speak Catalan and Spanish, but still, I would say that for someone that it's English native speaker, it should be easy as well, because the school helps you a lot to arrive there, and they show you how the life is in Barcelona, how to look for a flat and etc. But in terms of the class, yes, it's a it's a challenge. You're meeting people from everywhere, as I said before. You need to gain some confidence in yourself in order to participate, say something intelligent, because everyone can raise their hand and say something, but at the end you want to contribute. In the case method classes, the professor is kind of a moderator, as you said, John. It's not a lecture, so professors start asking questions to the class, and they need to start giving some feedback, and based on that, they start to build the whole case for the whole class to reach a conclusion and learn something from that. So you want to contribute, you want to be part of that. So to be part of that, you need to study, and to study, you need to work with your teammates. because they will help you to prepare and get there. So there's a lot of effort. I won't lie about this, and there's a lot of preparation. But again, in terms of a learning experience, I would say for an international student, it was great. It was a great experience, and it's challenging. Yet you need to get out of your comfort zone. Yes, but it's part of life, and I think it makes you better, I would say.
I think the good advice there is to arrive early, get assimilated, get settled in your place, and go out and feel the culture and meet people, and that's half the battle in a way. And then you're right. I mean, you just work hard and with your classmates or your assigned team, and you learn a lot, and that helps with the transition as well.
And actually, there's some Spanish courses at IESE for international students, so they arrive usually 1 month before, so they can learn Spanish and learn business vocabulary and get started before the actual classes of the MBA. Sorry,
Right.
John, I interrupted.
Oh, no, that's okay. And Michelle, you mentioned how flexible the school is at London. And I wonder, I know that you can take it in different lengths. So I wonder, how long did you stay at London Business School to get your MBA? Because I think there are 3 different times periods that you can actually earn an MBA at London Business School.
Yeah, so you can graduate, I think, in 15, 18, or 21 months. Unless you really need to graduate early, nobody does it.
Nobody wants to go that quick, right?
Yeah, you're just like, and also your MBA is so much fun. You're going to look back on this time.
Totally.
It doesn't make sense, I think, to cut it short. And there were quite a few people who came into LBS thinking, oh, I might graduate early. I don't know hardly anyone who did it, except for kind of a few people who came in, say they already had a family or like they had a job that they had to start early.
Yeah.
The 21 months fully allow you to explore whatever you want. And I feel like it can sound like, you're not doing that much, but actually everyone I know who graduated, most people at LBS, like they're doing multiple jobs, they're leading stuff on campus, traveling, and there's just so much you can do with this time that I feel like it's a shame to take the really short one. I know a lot of people do a 1-year program. They say it's amazing. But looking back, I feel like it just makes so much more sense to go for the full 2 years.
And my experience has been that most MBA graduates, even from a 2-year program, leave with a bittersweet attitude. They almost wish they could continue it because, it was such a life transformative experience. And it was also where you're making really good friends that, will endure. Those friendships will endure for a lifetime. And it's hard to actually let go even after 2 years. There's a question here that I think I know the answer. It's pretty obvious that, how does LBS treat a 3-year undergraduate degree? And I would think they treat it just as they treat a 4-year undergraduate degree, which is what you had, because the vast majority of schools in Europe are on a 3-year schedule, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you go to Oxford, it's often 3 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes people take on an extra year, but LBS is not going to look at a 3-year degree program any differently than a 4-year.
Right.
They're going to look at your experience and what you'd add to the class.
And another person asks, how is LBS for doing a career switch into asset management? And I have to tell you that London Business School has a superb reputation, particularly for finance. And I would think that that's a transition that would be easy to make with an LBS MBA, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're in one of the huge finance capitals of the world. Like I said, I didn't go into finance, but that's what many of my friends went into. And at LBS, you can look this up in the clubs, and you have all the coursework to prepare you for it. All the local kind of networks, all the big asset managers are in London. There's also quite a few tracks that'll take you. I think there's an asset management track that takes you to Boston and New York. You have all the alumni to reach out to. And I think because LBS is a bit smaller school, like any alumni are much more willing to kind of speak to you because they're excited. There's so much school pride when it comes to LBS. And then the other part of it is, yeah, just looking at the stats, you have people in all those roles at a lot of those companies that you can reach out to. Everyone I know who wanted to get one of those kind of more classic MBA jobs, whether it was consulting, private equity, venture capital, or even into tech, ended up getting what they wanted, either right out of LBS or their second job out of LBS, but usually the first. And so I don't think that'll be a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if you might look back on your MBA experience and tell me three highlights. What are three things that still resonate with you even today, years after you've graduated from the program? Gonzalo?
I would say, so at IESE, we have these short courses. I had the chance to go to New York. It was more corporate and finance oriented. So that was a great experience. But also I went to Shanghai, and I've never been before that. I've never been to China, and it was mind-blowing for me to go to a car factory in China and see how that industry developed. And of course, we had really good Chinese speakers, and in that sense, that's something that it was very important for me. Then I would say the different competitions I participated, I was part of one as well, BCIC, and then IPEC, which is a private equity competition that we organize at IESE. That gave me the chance to meet people from other schools. Of course, meet also, there were like judges and people within the industry. So I could do my networking on that side. And also we have this very fun event in Barcelona where we invite all different schools, and we do sports and play football, tennis, rugby, and that was also a hallmark for myself. But again, I would say the experience as a whole, but I don't want to be boring. So those specific things.
Michelle, how about for you? How about for you? What are the three big things that you took away from your MBA?
Gosh, it's super hard to figure out three things because there's so much. But I think about some of the big memories that come back. The first one was starting a company. I'd never done that before. LBS has an amazing entrepreneurship program in terms of coursework, student-run programs, and the connection to the startup scene in London. And so I participated in an accelerator at LBS where you kind of meet other co-founders, and we developed a brand from scratch. The product, ran this big Kickstarter campaign, raised $250,000, and like being able to do that as a student and kind of create something out of nothing is a huge experience. Second, and I think similar to what Gonzalo was saying, you do all these really cool learning experiences outside of the UK. And there's one you get to choose where you go. And I think this one is currently on hold. But the one I went on was in Myanmar because it was just such an incredible, culturally different experience. And you're going there to work with entrepreneurs there and help them with their businesses. So you get to learn about international business, but also experience a culture that's completely different. I mean, a lot of my friends in New York are like, oh, is London, what was it like? And I'm like, to be honest, London's more like New York than say New York is to most cities in the US. But getting that full global experience, you get to see things all around the world. And the final thing was running one of the big clubs on campus. I was co-president of the Technology and Media Club at LBS. It's the biggest professional club. I think at one point we had an event like every single week. You learn how to run a big organization. I had two other co-presidents, and so how to like kind of work with other people at a high level was also really nice.
One person asked about the academic rigor at LBS and the sense of competitiveness. Is it very competitive? Students competitive with each other? And how rigorous is the program itself?
So the first part, the students are not very competitive with each other at all. Everyone is extremely helpful. It's probably one of the best learning environments. Like I said, I came in not knowing that much about finance, and one of my best friends from the program is this South African hedge fund genius. He would sit next to me, and he would do the homework in the class, but then take time to teach me as well, which was.
I should just pause there and just say this about a lot of times urban schools in big cities where the students disassemble from the campus and go into the far reaches of a city, and schools that are heavy in finance, the prevailing view is that they tend to have more competitive cultures, but that's not really necessarily true because everyone is, you're really supportive of each other and you're trying to, help everyone succeed. And that tends to be what happens, and not the fact that, okay, you can have sharp elbows because you're not going to see your classmates every single day since you don't live on campus. And incidentally, the finance bros or the tech bros, they're on their best behavior, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Even with consulting recruiting, I really didn't experience that. Like so many people were willing to help me with case prep, help me figure out how do I interview for a company like McKinsey. And I feel like, I wouldn't have gotten that job without that help. I think the other question was to the rigor. I think, the first courses are quite rigorous in that first term because you had to learn all the fundamentals. And I think for the rest of the classes, there's a bunch of kind of reviews and you can ask the people in the year above, which classes are harder or easier to kind of balance out your schedule. You can choose the super rigorous value investing course that's essentially like having a full-time job. You can choose some of the more lightweight classes. I think that's kind of up to you. All the classes are going to have some sort of work. Like you're not going to get an MBA without doing anything.
Right.
But I think how much you want to learn, how many classes you want to take is kind of up to you.
And your initial cohort in the core curriculum was how many?
How many people were in my class?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. My stream was around 80 something, and then our whole class was, I think, like 430.
Right. Good. So you were 80 and Gonzalo was 70, I believe, is what you said earlier. How did Gonzalo, how did the class size affect the learning? That's another question we have from the audience. And I'm assuming, that's the core. And then in the core, everyone is assigned to a small team, generally of 5 students, where you do most of your work with. And then in the electives, it totally breaks down because obviously people are taking different electives and they're pursuing different paths.
Yeah.
How did the class size, your cohort size, affect your learning?
Look, first, our team we were 8.
8.
Yeah, but again, this affects your learning because if you need to work as a team. If you don't work as a team, it will be incredibly tough. Of course, you will read all the papers for the class, but maybe at some point, one of the team members will be more specific about a case. They will present the case within the team before the class, and you will take some insights from them, and you help each other. Of course, if it's a finance case and someone wants to be in finance, they will prepare it more and they will choose it. And if I wanted to learn more about marketing, for example, I will put all my more efforts there. So you help each other to perform better in the class. And afterwards, when you start with electives, you have a similar dynamic. You need to team up with people from new classes, usually, I don't know, new friends that you meet or people that match with your profile. And you do the same. You meet, you prepare, and then you present to the whole class. But it's interesting. It's interesting the way you learn with that method.
Yeah, and I think that the breaking up the entering class in cohorts creates a more intimate feel, and obviously some of the deeper friendships that you develop, particularly early on, are with those folks, right, Michelle?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like my stream was particularly close. And 2 of the weddings I'm going to this year are with 2 people that I sat close nearby when I first got to LBS. They're from different countries than me, and we're still very good friends.
Yeah, that's great. A question here, and this involves, how you present yourself to admissions. How do you effectively communicate your short and your long-term goals post MBA to an admissions officer? I would think you just tell them what you want. And ideally, it should somehow line up with your interests or your work experience, so it's not a total shock. Is that the right approach, Gonzalo?
I would say so. First, well, you need to be true to yourself and understand what you want in the short and or mid and long term, right? If you want to be in marketing, probably you need to tell your story and where do you want to to which point you wanna reach. But of course, admissions tend to like more a story that has a path and has certain steps. But I think it also needs to be in line with your own interests, right? If you want to do something, you need to explain where you want to reach. Maybe you will end up somewhere else, but you need to, at least I would recommend to have a specific goal to where you want to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, and tell your story, right? Prepare yourself for that, and you will have a greater impact within the admissions team.
Yeah, exactly. Michelle, I wonder what advice you would have to current applicants having gone through the competitive process of getting into a highly selective school.
I mean, I think the story part and knowing what you want makes a lot of sense. Like the admissions officers, they're looking at a lot of applicants. So the more you can really distill and make kind of what Gonzalo said, like you kind of know what you want. And I wouldn't worry about, oh, does this fit the typical MBA path? Because that's not super necessary. And if you try to fit into this cookie cutter mold that you don't, it's going to be really hard to craft a story. Versus if you're interested, say, your career goal is working at Nike, but you do something completely irrelevant to that right now, showing why you want to work there, what you've done to kind of prepare yourself for that job, go to that school's website, find the courses that you would take. Particularly with LBS, like I've interviewed quite a few students, and the one thing you can tell almost immediately when you interview someone is like how interested they are really in the school. Because, going to LBS requires typically uplifting not just your life from a city to another, but a country to another. And LBS is not just looking for, students who have a really interesting background, but also do they really want an international career? Do they want to come to this school? And I think putting in just a little bit more of that legwork to see why I want to go to this school and then match that to what you know about yourself and your goals will create a story that admission officers are then happy to defend.
Yeah, true. Gonzalo, your advice to current applicants?
Well, adding up with what Michelle said, I would try to have always a plan B, right? Of course, you will have a plan A. In my case, was doing investment banking. I had that very straight, but also don't be too rigid about that. Try to be a little bit flexible and say, okay, but I'm also interested in that, and I think I can end up there because of X, Y, Z. And I think, I don't know, that applies to many things, but that's something that, be open to new opportunities, and the MBA will present those opportunities as well. So don't say, if I don't end up in investment banking, I will be a failure. Say, okay, I could do this. I could end up in corporate development. I could end up working in marketing, but try to have your plan A and your plan B defined, because that's important.
In addition to the skills one gains in the education itself, or the self-confidence that an MBA provides a candidate, often, one of the big reasons why a lot of people go for an MBA is to join a network of people who will support them, help them throughout their career, who they can lean upon without worry or concern for honest, straightforward advice. I wonder, in both your cases, how the networks of your school have played a role in what you've done. Now, Michelle, you've started your own company, and one question here is, do you have any former classmates or alums who've actually become clients? So maybe answer the question more generally about how the network has been helpful to you so far, and then the question posed by an audience member of, are any of your clients alums of LBS?
Okay, sure. So actually that did happen very recently for the first time. Actually, like 2 weeks ago, I was working with an LBS classmate on her branding, which was a lot of fun. But separate out of that, I first started doing my freelance business through somebody I'd met at an LBS networking mentorship session where they assign you a mentor, and it was this women's program. So it's kind of through LBS, kind of not. And she connected me actually to my first client. But then outside of that, my clients, and I feel like just the broader network, it's not just that first degree, but often the second and third degrees. So for example, one of the companies I worked with for a long time in London was the brother of one of my LBS classmates. And I just posted in this group that I was kind of open for business. And he was like, oh my God, my brother's company needs this. And he connected me that way. And I think that's really where you see the power of the network, because, you know, you can only meet so many people in your class, but if those people all then have their own networks and you're comfortable kind of asking them for help, people at LBS are extremely generous with their connections, their time. You build so much good rapport, kind of traveling together, working together, and having this experience of moving to a whole new country together, that I think that actually makes the network stronger.
Yeah, definitely. Gonzalo, how's the network contributed to your career?
Well, in banking, there's a generally in each big bank, Citi was an example, you have different MDs from different schools. Of course, IESE has a strong network there, and that helps you a lot to first to get an interview. Then when you're interviewing, of course, there's a strong connection within someone from IESE network, and then of course at the IF there were other IESE alumni. Again, here in Buenos Aires, there's a strong IESE alumni network as well. One of them is a client of mine, so it helps you a lot, the network that you build and being part of this new club. I would say it helps you to find new paths and new, I don't know, connect with other people and do business with other people. And I think that's one of the big advantages of doing an MBA. You're creating a new network. Of course, afterwards, when you enter a job, you will open new doors and meet new people and create a new network. But again, as a first step, if you wanna, in my case, I wanted to be in a big bank. Being part of the IESE alumni helped me a lot.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for participating and being here. I think everyone learned a lot about your two schools and how the MBA has really had a big impact in your life. Michelle Wiles, thank you from London Business School. Gonzalo Ortiz, thank you from IESE. And for all of you out there, thanks for joining and asking some intelligent questions. There's so many more questions, and we can't get to them right now, but maybe we'll get to them later on. Who knows? All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. You've been watching our Center Court session on London Business School and IESE Business School in Barcelona, Spain. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.